She was sold for almost nothing, but the human saw a queen in her eyes. The marketplace on Vexus Prime reeked of desperation and decay. Commander Kieran Voss pulled his breathing mask tighter, filtering out the worst of the stench as he moved through the sprawling bazaar of misery. His mission was clear: locate survivors from the recent raid on the Luminar system and secure their release before the Coalition could mount an official rescue. Looking for something specific? Off-worlder? A three-eyed merchant sidled up to him, voice oily with practiced charm. Strongbacks for labor? Entertainment, perhaps? Kieran kept his revulsion hidden behind a mask of indifference. Just browsing, he said, continuing his careful scan of the holding pens. Most captives kept their eyes down, hope long extinguished. 6 years undercover in these outer rim territories had taught Kieran to look for the ones who still had fight left. They were the ones who could survive the journey home. That's when he saw her. In the farthest cage, partially hidden in shadow, a figure sat unnaturally still. Unlike the others, she wasn't huddled or cowering. Despite the chains binding her wrists and the obvious malnutrition, she sat with her spine straight, head lifted. That one, Kieran pointed, trying to keep his voice casual. What's her story? The merchant snorted. Waste of credits. Picked her up after the Luminar raid. Pretty enough with that silver skin, but too weak for labor, too proud for pleasure work. Been trying to offload her for weeks. Kieran approached the cage. The woman's skin had a dull, silvery sheen beneath the grime and bruises. She was clearly Luminari, one of the last. What caught him, though, were her eyes, violet with flecks of starlight. In them he saw something the merchant had missed entirely. Dignity. How much? Kieran asked, not looking away from those eyes. Take her for 200 credits. Just want the cage space back, honestly. Kieran handed over his credit chip without negotiation, a move that would have raised suspicion had the merchant not been so eager to be rid of her. The transaction completed, Kieran waited as the cage was unlocked. The woman didn't move. Your new master's waiting, the merchant barked, jabbing a prod toward her. Kieran intercepted his arm. That won't be necessary. His voice carried a dangerous edge that made the merchant step back. Kieran knelt before the cage opening, meeting those remarkable eyes. My name is Kieran Voss. I'm with the Coalition Reclamation Unit. You're free now if you choose to come with me. For the first time, surprise flickered across her face. Free? The word sounded foreign on her tongue. Yes, no conditions. No servitude. Freedom. She studied him with such intensity that Kieran felt as if she were reading every thought he'd ever had. Finally she moved, rising with unexpected grace despite her weakened state. I am Nilaria, she said, her voice soft but clear. Why would you free someone you believe has no value? Kieran reached slowly for the restraints on her wrists, disengaging them with his override key. Whoever told you that you have no value was lying, he said simply. And I think you know it too, or you wouldn't still be sitting like royalty even in chains. Something shifted in her expression, a flicker of what might have been hope. Come, Kieran said, not touching her but standing aside to let her walk out on her own. My ship is nearby. You'll have medical care, food, and safety there. After that, your path is yours to choose. Nilaria took her first step of freedom with hesitation, but each step after came with growing certainty. Kieran walked beside her, not ahead, not behind, a small gesture that she noted with a sidelong glance. As they left the market of broken souls behind, Kieran felt Nilaria's presence like a strange gravity beside him. He had freed many captives before, but something told him this rescue would change everything. For her, for him, and perhaps for worlds beyond their knowing. Aboard the Horizon Runner, Nilaria sat motionless on the edge of the medical bay bed, her silver skin gleaming under the soft lights after being properly cleaned for the first time in months. Dr. Ilara Kenth, the ship's physician, finished her scan and stepped back with a concerned frown. Severe malnutrition, Commander, but her physiology is remarkably resilient. The Luminari were known for their regenerative abilities. Kieran nodded, keeping a respectful distance from Nilaria. Thank you, Doctor. Please ensure our guest has everything she needs. I am not a guest, Nilaria spoke suddenly, her melodic voice stronger now. What am I to you, Commander Voss? A mission objective? A rescued asset? Kieran considered her question carefully. You're a person who deserved freedom. Nothing more complicated than that. Nilaria's violet eyes narrowed. No one gives without expecting return. What will you demand of me once I am stronger? Nothing, Kieran replied. When we reach Stellaris Station, you'll receive refugee status, resources, and can choose your own path. Whether that's with us or elsewhere. Disbelief shadowed her face. Such things do not happen to people like me. They do now. Kieran moved toward the door. Rest, heal. The ship is yours to explore when you're ready. No restricted areas, no guards. For 3 days, Nylaria remained in her quarters, emerging only when the corridors were empty. Kieran gave her space, understanding trust would come slowly, if at all. On the 4th day, he found her on the observation deck, staring at the stars streaming past. The stars look different when you're not viewing them through cage bars, she said without turning. Kieran joined her at the viewport. I imagine everything does. Your crew watches me. They're kind but cautious. They've never met a luminary before, Kieran explained. Your people were thought extinct after the hegemony's attack on your system. Nalaria's fingers traced patterns on the glass. Not extinct, scattered, hunted. Valuable for our resonance with stellar energy. She turned to him finally. Why did you truly free me, Commander? Kieran, he corrected gently. And I freed you because when I looked at you, I saw someone who never stopped being free inside where it matters. Something in his words reached her. The rigid set of her shoulders softened slightly. Yesterday, she said, your navigation officer showed me how to plot a course. She didn't guard the controls or watch my hands. Nilaria's voice held wonder. She just taught me. That's Talia for you, former racer pilot. Loves sharing her knowledge. Is this how it always is? People simply helping one another. Kieran smiled, leaning against the viewport. Not always, but it's what we strive for. That evening, Nylaria appeared in the mess hall during peak hours, causing a momentary hush before conversation resumed. She took a seat beside Kieran, her back straight, movements precise. The food synthesizer created something called ice cream for me today, she said, almost conversationally. It was unexpected. Lieutenant Dax Morrow, the ship's security chief, laughed. Wait until you try the real stuff. Synthesized doesn't compare. Nylaria's lips curved in what might have been her first smile. There are better versions of good things? Many, Kieran said, something warming in his chest at her simple joy. That night, alert signals woke Kieran from sleep. The Horizon Runner had detected a hegemony patrol vessel on an intercept course. As he rushed to the bridge, he found Nylaria already there, her face tight with fear. They're scanning for luminary energy signatures, she whispered. They know I'm here. Instead of hiding her, Kieran made a decision that would change everything between them. Talia, engage stealth systems, he ordered. Nylaria, would you be willing to help us? Your knowledge of hegemony protocols could get us all to safety. The bridge crew turned to her, not with suspicion, but with hope. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in Nylaria's understanding. They weren't protecting her as property, but as one of their own. I will help, she said, stepping forward. And after we evade them, I would like to learn more about this ice cream, and perhaps about becoming part of a crew. As they worked together to outmaneuver the patrol, Kieran watched Nylaria's natural command presence emerge. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was beginning to live. A month passed aboard the Horizon Runner, transforming Nylaria in ways both subtle and profound. Her silver skin now held a luminescent quality, especially when she laughed, something occurring with increasing frequency. Her once matted hair had grown into a flowing cascade that shimmered with starlight particles, a trait Kieran had only heard about in legends of the luminary royalty. Today, she stood in the ship's training arena, facing off against Dax in what had become their daily combat practice. Her movements held an ethereal grace as she anticipated his attacks, sidestepping with precision. You're holding back again, she chided, circling the security chief. Dax grinned. Not this time. He lunged, a move that would have overwhelmed her weeks ago. Now Nylaria countered with a sequence so complex it left everyone watching in stunned silence, including herself. She stepped back, eyes wide with confusion. I don't know how I knew to do that, she whispered. Kieran approached from the observation area. Maybe you did once, and your body remembers what your mind forgot. That evening, Kieran found Nylaria in her quarters, surrounded by star charts and historical documents about the luminary civilization. May I? He asked from the doorway. She nodded, setting aside a tablet. Dreams keep coming. Not nightmares of captivity, but memories. I think places I couldn't possibly know. People calling me by another name. Kieran sat across from her. Over these weeks, a comfortable familiarity had grown between them, built on mutual respect and something deeper neither had named. What name? He asked gently. Her eyes met his, vulnerable in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. Illyra Nixaris Lumina. Which is impossible because that was the name of the Crown Princess, Kieran finished quietly. The heir who was believed killed during the fall of the Luminar Royal Palace. Nylaria stood abruptly, moving to the viewport. I am not her. I cannot be her. She would have fought harder, saved her people. Kieran followed, standing close enough that she could feel his warmth without quite touching. The attack was devastating and unexpected. No one could have stopped it, not even a princess. If I am her voice broke. Then I failed them all. Without thinking, Kieran reached for her hand. It was the first time he had initiated contact, and for a breathless moment, he thought he had overstepped. Then her fingers intertwined with his. You survived, he said softly. That isn't failure. That's the most royal thing you could have done. You kept your people's legacy alive. Something electric passed between them as they stood connected, hand in hand, before the endless stars. Nylaria moved closer, her free hand hesitantly rising to rest against Kieran's chest. Your heart beats so quickly, she observed. It tends to do that around you, he admitted, the honesty surprising them both. Her eyes searched his face. At first I thought you pitied me. Then I believed you simply valued all life equally. Now you wonder what? Kieran's voice had dropped to a whisper. If you see me as I truly am, not broken, not royal, just Nylaria. I've only ever seen you, he answered. From the first moment. The kiss that followed wasn't planned, it simply became inevitable, like gravity between stars. Gentle at first, then deepening with the release of feelings both had carefully contained for weeks. When they finally parted, Nylaria's skin glowed with a soft light that illuminated the small space between them. That's new, Kieran murmured, fascinated. It's a luminary trait, she explained, a blush deepening the silver of her cheeks. When we experience strong emotions, our connection to stellar energy manifests physically. He smiled. It's beautiful. The ship's alert system interrupted their moment, announcing an incoming transmission. On the screen appeared a face that drained all color from Nylaria's luminescent features, an aged luminary male with ceremonial markings across his brow. By the stars, the elder gasped. Princess Illyra lives. Nylaria gripped Kieran's hand tighter as memories cascaded through her mind. This man, Sentinel Thalor, had been her father's most trusted advisor. How did you find me? She asked. We've been monitoring communications for luminary energy signatures since the fall. When your powers began reawakening aboard this vessel, we detected the resonance. Kieran felt Nylaria trembling beside him. You're not alone anymore, he reminded her softly. She straightened, and before Kieran's eyes she transformed. Not physically, but in bearing. The woman who had sat with dignity even in chains now stood with the full presence of her birthright. Tell me, Sentinel Thalor, she said, her voice regal and clear. How many of our people survived, and what must be done to protect them now? As the conversation unfolded, revealing a scattered network of surviving luminari in hiding, Kieran understood with absolute clarity. He hadn't rescued a slave that day in the marketplace. He had found a queen who would reshape the stars, and somehow, against all odds, she had found her heart's equal in him. The War Council aboard the Horizon Runner crackled with tension. Holograms of surviving luminary leaders flickered alongside coalition commanders, their faces grim as they reviewed intelligence reports. The hegemony has expanded operations in the Vega Quadrant, Admiral Loren reported. Their slave raids have intensified, particularly targeting systems with high concentrations of displaced luminari. Nylaria, now openly embracing her royal title of Illyra, stood at the center of the command table, her silver skin radiating a subtle glow as she studied the tactical display. 6 weeks had transformed her from a rescued captive to a leader, whose quiet authority commanded respect. Throughout the coalition fleet, they're hunting for survivors with royal bloodlines, she stated. The rumors are true. They need our connection to stellar energy for their new weapons platform. Kieran moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. The relationship that had blossomed between them remained largely private, though few could miss the way they gravitated toward each other. or how Nilaria's glow intensified in his presence. Our intelligence confirms the weapon is nearing completion, Kieran added. If activated, it could destabilize star systems at will, essentially holding entire planets hostage. Sentinel Thalor, now Nilaria's chief advisor, stepped forward. We have located their primary research facility. It orbits a dying star in the Kalis system, using its fluctuating energy for their experiments. Then that's our target, Kieran concluded. A precision strike team could— No, Nilaria interrupted. The facility will be heavily guarded, with countermeasures specifically designed against Luminari abilities. This isn't just about destroying their research. We need to rescue any captives and secure the ancient knowledge they've stolen. Admiral Lauren frowned. With respect, Your Highness, the priority must be destroying that weapon before it becomes operational. Nilaria's eyes flashed with starlight. And what of my people being tortured to power it? Are they acceptable casualties? Silence fell across the command center. Kieran watched her, not with concern that she would break under pressure, but with pride at the leader she had become. We don't need to choose, he said finally. We can accomplish both objectives with the right strategy. After the council dispersed, Kieran found Nilaria on their favorite spot on the observation deck. The cosmic storm outside painted her silver skin with blues and purples as she stared into the swirling nebula. You're planning something dangerous, he said, not a question but a certainty. She turned to him, her expression softening. I can infiltrate the facility in ways your teams cannot. My royal bloodline gives me abilities that can counteract their security systems. It's a trap, Kieran stated flatly. They've been hunting you specifically. The weapon, the raids, it's all been to draw you out. I know. Her voice was calm, resolved. Kieran closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. Then you know I won't let you face it alone. Commander Voss, she said, a hint of her royal authority in her tone. Your duty is to your ship and your mission. Kieran, he corrected gently, echoing their conversation from months ago. And my mission has always been to bring you home safely. That hasn't changed. Her composure cracked then, and she leaned into him, her forehead resting against his chest. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail them again? Kieran lifted her chin gently. You never failed anyone, Elira. And your strength isn't just in your royal blood or your abilities. It's in your heart, your capacity to endure without becoming cruel, to suffer without losing compassion. Their kiss was tender, carrying the weight of unspoken fears, that this mission could separate them, that the future they had barely begun to imagine together might dissolve like stardust. I once had nothing, she whispered against his lips. Now I have everything to lose. The next morning, the command center buzzed with preparations. Nilaria entered wearing traditional Luminari battle attire, a form-fitting suit of silvery material that enhanced her natural abilities, her hair braided with ceremonial threads that marked her royal status. The infiltration team will consist of myself, Commander Voss, Lieutenant Dax, and 2 Luminari guards, she announced, her decision clearly already made. Admiral Lauren began to protest, but Kieran stepped forward. With respect, Admiral, Her Highness has tactical advantages we cannot replicate. The mission has the highest chance of success with her direct involvement. As final preparations were made, Dr. Alara took Kieran aside. The scans show her powers are still developing. She's stronger than she knows, but also more vulnerable. The emotional connection between you enhances her abilities. But it also means if you're harmed— I understand, Kieran said grimly. Hours later, as their stealth shuttle approached the hegemony facility, Nilaria gazed out at the dying star it orbited. Its unstable energies reached out like crimson tendrils. Beautiful and deadly, she turned to find Kieran watching her. His eyes filled with an emotion neither had put into words. Whatever happens, he said quietly, finding you is the best mission I ever failed. She raised an eyebrow. Failed? He smiled. I was supposed to rescue you. Instead, you're about to save us all. As the shuttle engaged its final approach sequence, Nilaria reached for Kieran's hand one last time, before duty called them both to their positions. Ready to face the shadows, Commander? She asked, her voice steady despite the danger awaiting them. Kieran's answer was simple, but it carried a promise that transcended their mission. With you, always. The hegemony facility loomed before them, a grotesque structure of black metal absorbing the dying star's crimson light. Kieran led the advance team through maintenance corridors while Nylaria, glowing faintly with concentrated stellar energy, navigated using her innate connection to the power systems. "The captives are being held 2 levels down," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with starlight as she sensed the presence of her people. And something else. Ancient artifacts from the Royal Archives. Dax disabled the security nodes as they progressed deeper, but halfway to their objective, alarms blared. Kieran exchanged a grim look with Nylaria. "They were expecting us," he said. "No," she corrected, her expression darkening. "They were expecting me." A holographic figure materialized in the corridor ahead. Lord Commander Vaxis, architect of the Luminar genocide and the man who had ordered the royal palace destroyed years ago. "Princess Elira," he greeted with mock deference. "How kind of you to deliver yourself to us. Your power signature is exactly what our weapon requires for completion." Kieran stepped protectively closer to Nylaria, but she moved forward with regal composure. "You destroyed my world believing it would break us," she said, her voice carrying a power that made the air vibrate. "You failed." Vaxis smiled coldly. "Did I? Look around you, princess. Your people are scattered, your culture in ruins, and now you walk willingly into my trap." "Not willingly," Nylaria replied. "Purposefully." She closed her eyes, and the ambient light seemed to bend toward her. The luminary guards flanking her dropped to one knee in a practiced motion that Kieran recognized from their planning sessions. "Now," she commanded. Kieran and Dax activated the disruptors they'd been concealing, creating a momentary blackout that plunged the facility into darkness. In that instant, Nylaria's form erupted with blinding light. Not the gentle glow Kieran had grown accustomed to, but the full power of her royal lineage channeled into offensive capability. The hologram of Vaxis shattered, and security barriers crumbled under the wave of energy she released. For a breathtaking moment, Kieran saw her as her enemies must, not as the broken captive from the marketplace, but as living starfire, a queen whose power had only been dormant, never destroyed. The central chamber, she directed once the surge subsided. "Quickly!" They fought their way through the facility, Nylaria's abilities clearing paths where weapons couldn't. When they reached the captives, dozens of luminari connected. To horrific energy siphoning machines, her composure nearly broke. "Get them to the evacuation point," she ordered Dax and the guards. "Commander Voss and I will secure the weapon and the artifacts." As they separated from the group, Kieran noticed Nylaria's glow flickering, her strength waning from the massive energy expenditure. "You can't maintain this level of power much longer," he warned, supporting her as they hurried toward the central research chamber. "I only need a few more minutes," she assured him, though her voice betrayed her exhaustion. The chamber door slid open to reveal a sight that stole Kieran's breath. A massive device pulsing with stolen stellar energy, surrounded by ancient luminary artifacts glowing in resonance with it. At its center stood Lord Commander Vaxis himself, no longer a hologram but flesh and blood, holding a crystal scepter Nylaria immediately recognized. "The stellar crown," she gasped. "The royal conduit," yes, Vaxis confirmed. "The key to controlling your people's power. With it, and the addition of your royal essence, our weapon will be unstoppable." Kieran raised his weapon, but Nylaria placed a restraining hand on his arm. "He wants me to attack," she murmured. "The weapon is designed to absorb and redirect luminary energy." Understanding dawned in Kieran's eyes. This was the true trap, not capturing her but provoking her into unleashing her power directly against the weapon, which would only strengthen it. "What's your play?" he asked quietly. Her lips curved in a smile that reminded him of their first day on the observation deck, when she'd discovered ice cream and possibilities. Connection, not destruction. Before Kieran could respond, Nylaria stepped forward, addressing Vaxis directly. "You understand our power as a weapon, but that has always been your fundamental mistake. The Luminari don't control stellar energy. We commune with it." She stretched out her hand, not toward Vaxis or the weapon, but toward Kieran. "Our strength comes from connection, to each other, to the stars themselves, to the hearts that recognize our worth." Kieran took her hand without hesitation, and something extraordinary happened. The energy flowing through Nylaria shifted, incorporating a new frequency, one that carried not just her royal signature but also the uniquely human resilience Kieran embodied. Vaxis laughed. "Touching but futile. Your coalition lover can't save you, princess. He already has, Nylaria replied softly, long before today. With her free hand, she reached toward the stellar crown in Vaxus's grip. Instead of trying to wrench it away physically, she closed her eyes and sang, a single pure note that resonated with the crystal. The scepter vibrated, then flew from Vaxus's hand directly to hers as if reuniting with its rightful owner. The moment the crown connected with her, a cascade of events unfolded. The weapons systems, calibrated to subjugate luminary energy, couldn't process the harmonized power now flowing through Nylaria, power amplified by her connection to Kieran, whose human essence was completely outside its parameters. Alarms blared as the facility began to destabilize. "You'll die with me," Vaxus snarled, lunging toward them as the chamber began to collapse. Kieran intercepted him, landing a decisive blow that sent the commander sprawling. "Not today," he growled. Nylaria, the crown now glowing in harmony with her own light, turned her attention to the ancient artifacts. With graceful gestures, she released them from their containment fields, gathering the legacy of her people into a protective sphere of energy around them. "We need to go," Kieran urged as structural beams began to fall. They raced through disintegrating corridors, the facility breaking apart as the weapon's destabilized core released its pent-up energy. They reached the evacuation point just as their shuttle prepared for emergency departure, the rescued Luminari captives already aboard. From the viewport, they watched the hegemony facility collapse, drawn into the dying star's gravitational pull in a spectacular display of cosmic justice. 3 months later, on a verdant planet the Coalition had designated as New Luminar, Nylaria stood on the balcony of the newly established government center. Below, her people, no longer scattered and hiding, worked to build a society that honored their heritage while embracing a new future. Kieran joined her, now wearing the formal insignia of both Coalition Commander and Luminari Royal Consort. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Nylaria turned to him, her silver skin radiant in the light of their new home star, her eyes no longer holding the shadows of her captivity. "About us? Never." She leaned into his embrace. "I was just thinking about that day in the marketplace. How close we came to never finding each other." Kieran brushed a strand of starlit hair from her face. "I would have recognized you anywhere, in any cage, in any darkness, why just because you saw the queen in me?" she asked with a small smile. "Because I saw you," he corrected, echoing the words that had become their truth. "Just you. Always you." Their kiss sealed a journey that had begun in the worst place imaginable and led to something neither could have foreseen. Not a story of rescue and gratitude, but of two equals who had recognized in each other something rare and precious, the capacity to see beyond circumstance to the essence beneath. As the twin moons rose over New Luminar, Nylaria and Kieran stood together, no longer commander and captive, savior and saved, but partners in the truest sense, each having freed the other in ways that transcended physical chains. What had begun with seeing had become a bond forged in starlight, stronger than any force that had tried to break them, and in that bond, both had found their crowning glory, the end.